The silence hit me like a physical wave as I pushed through the glass doors. Every head turned, every conversation halted, and 27 pairs of eyes locked onto me. I'd been gone 3 days. Just 3 days to watch my mother take her final breath, to select a casket I couldn't afford, to sit alone in her empty apartment, surrounded by faded photographs and half-finished knitting projects. Garrett crossed the workspace in 9 aggressive strides, his tie slightly askew, a vein pulsing at his temple. The quarterly review binders clutched in his white-knuckled grip told me everything before he even opened his mouth. "Where were you yesterday?" His voice carried across the hushed room. "Your team scrambled to cover everything during the most important presentation of the quarter." I swallowed, my throat dry as sand. "I was supposed to be at my mother's funeral, but your dead mother isn't our problem." His words echoed against the windows, bouncing back like stones. Someone gasped. The receptionist pretended to organize papers. My colleague Willa stared intently at her keyboard. "We have deadlines," Garrett continued, stepping closer. "You think client contracts care about your personal issues? You think we can just tell them, 'Sorry, Thea had family matters'?" The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I felt hollow, scraped out, a gourd with nothing inside. But somewhere in that emptiness, something small and hard took root. I nodded slowly, walked to my desk without removing my coat, and pulled out the manila envelope I'd brought. The weight of it had been burning against my side all morning. "I understand deadlines matter," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Just like safety regulations matter." Garrett's expression flickered between confusion and irritation. "What are you talking about? I wasn't at my mother's funeral yesterday." I ran my fingers along the sealed edge of the envelope. The office remained frozen, a tableau of uncomfortable witnesses pretending not to listen while straining to hear every word. Instead, I was at West River Medical Center, meeting with their ethics board and OSHA representatives. I hadn't been at Mom's funeral. The thought still gutted me, would haunt me forever. But she had made me swear on her hospital bed, her fingers like bird bones wrapped around mine. "Promise me, Thea," she'd whispered. "Some things matter more than ceremony." Garrett's face shifted through a kaleidoscope of expressions before settling on manufactured concern. "Thea, I understand you're grieving. Perhaps you should take another day." "My mother cleaned this building for 15 years, I interrupted. "Night shift. She emptied your trash can every Tuesday and Thursday around 11:30 p.m. You never saw her." The revelation rippled through the office. Willa's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Our receptionist stopped pretending to organize papers. "Nobody here knew," I continued, "that the woman who scrubbed your bathrooms and polished the conference room table was putting me through college. Nobody knew she volunteered days at West River Medical for 14 years, so beloved they gave her free treatments when the cancer started." Garrett shifted his weight, glancing toward the executive offices. "Thea, we should discuss this privately." I slid a single page from the envelope. "Not everything, just enough. What my mother collected over 7 years matters more than my attendance at her funeral. That's what she made me promise." If you're finding this story compelling, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Your support helps more stories like this reach people who need them. Drop a comment if you've ever witnessed workplace toxicity. Your stories matter too. My name is Thea Kavos. I'm 32, with a master's degree in environmental health that my mother paid for by cleaning office buildings at night and hospital rooms during the day. I know the chemical composition of every industrial cleaner on the market. I can identify carcinogens by their scent profiles. My mother made sure of that. "Knowledge is protection," she'd always say, her hands raw from cleaning products as she helped me with homework. Loretta Kavos came to this country with nothing but determination and a fierce love for the daughter she was raising alone. She worked invisible hours, the kind nobody with a corner office ever witnesses. She moved through buildings after everyone important had gone home, emptying waste bins and wiping down surfaces covered in fingerprints and coffee rings. For 15 years, she cleaned this building. For 8 of those years, she documented everything. The day she told me about the headaches, I worried. The day she mentioned nosebleeds, I grew concerned. The morning she couldn't stop vomiting, I insisted on the hospital visit that changed everything. Stage 4, the doctor had said, avoiding my eyes. Aggressive. Unusual for someone without risk factors. Except there were risk factors. 3 other night cleaners from our building had developed similar cancers within 18 months. All worked on the restricted 6th floor. All handled waste from the unmarked containers that appeared each Wednesday night. It burns through gloves, my mother had told her hospital supervisor during a treatment session. It smells wrong. She'd been bringing small samples to West River for months before her diagnosis, collecting them in barrier containers, labeling locations, dates, times, building a case while the poison built in her body. I know what this is, I whispered to her. I know what they're doing. She squeezed my hand weakly. Then make it stop. As her condition deteriorated, hospital staff became her advocates. Elias from the ethics committee started asking questions. Procedures were initiated. Tests were run. She died on Sunday. Her funeral was Tuesday at 2 p.m. I spent that time in a fluorescent-lit conference room at West River Medical, surrounded by officials, lawyers, and environmental specialists, going through 7 years of my mother's meticulous records. Thea, you don't understand the complexity of quarterly reporting, Garrett was saying now, reaching for the paper in my hand. If you're suggesting some connection between cleaning supplies and your mother's condition, I'm not suggesting anything, I replied. The Environmental Protection Agency and State Health Department will be making those determinations. I'm merely informing you why I missed yesterday's meeting. The 6th floor executive elevator dinged. Keaton, our CEO, emerged with our legal director, their expressions carved from granite as they surveyed the scene. Garrett, Keaton called, his voice dangerously calm. My office. Now. His eyes shifted to me. Miss Cavos, please join us. I returned the single page to my envelope. I'll need to call my attorney first. The statement, true but delivered with a confidence I didn't entirely feel, sent another ripple through the watching crowd. Willa stood up. I'll come with you, Thea. I hadn't expected that. Willa and I were work-friendly, but not close. The solidarity surprised me, left me momentarily speechless. That won't be necessary, Keaton said sharply. Actually, I found my voice. I'd prefer a witness. Keaton's jaw tightened, but he nodded tersely. As we walked toward the elevator, whispers erupted behind us. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Dante, my friend from college who now worked for the district attorney. The message simply read, they called, stay calm, admit nothing, I'm on my way. In the elevator, Keaton maintained a frigid silence while Garrett nervously adjusted his tie. Miss Cavos, Keaton finally said as the doors closed, I understand you're experiencing grief, but accusations without foundation. Let's not discuss anything until all parties are represented, I interrupted quietly. His eyes narrowed. I'm offering you a chance to explain yourself before things become formal. The elevator climbed to the 6th floor, the restricted floor where my mother had found those unmarked containers, where 3 other cleaners had been exposed, where executive decisions were made about what chemicals could be disposed of through regular channels instead of through regulated waste management that would cost millions annually. My mother already explained everything, I replied as the doors opened. For 8 years, in detail, with samples, Willa shifted beside me, her presence somehow steadying. I hadn't known until that moment how badly I needed someone, anyone, on my side. Keaton's office sprawled across the corner of the building, windows on 2 sides showcasing the city below. He gestured to chairs across from his desk. Miss Cavos, Before we go further, I want to express my condolences for your loss, he began, his tone modulated to convey sincerity. Had we known your mother was employed by our building services contractor? She wasn't, I corrected. She was employed directly by this company through a subsidiary, Cavendell Maintenance Services, owned by your brother-in-law but financed through company funds. His expression froze. That information wasn't in the envelope. That had come from Dante last night after examining the corporate filings. I see you've been busy instead of grieving, Garrett muttered. Something snapped inside me. My mother spent 15 years cleaning your messes. Her last coherent words weren't about love or memory or saying goodbye. They were about making sure no one else suffered what she did. So, yes, I skipped her funeral to honor those words. The intercom on Keaton's desk buzzed. Sir, there are some people in the lobby asking to speak with Miss Cavos. They have government identification. Keaton's finger hesitated over the button. Send them up, he finally responded, his voice tight. He turned to me, mask slipping to reveal fury beneath. Whatever you think you know, I know enough, I said quietly. And now, so do they. The air in the room felt charged, dangerous. Willa's hand found mine under the table and squeezed gently. The next 60 seconds stretched like taffy, silent except for the soft tick of Keaton's ostentatious desk clock. Each breath felt deliberate, each heartbeat a countdown to something none of us could stop. The elevator dinged in the distance. The conference room doors opened to reveal 3 individuals in professional attire, badges visible on their lapels. Leading them was a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her stood a man carrying a metal case and another woman with a tablet, already typing. Mr. Keaton? The silver-haired woman nodded. I'm Director Meredith from the Environmental Protection Agency. These are my colleagues from OSHA and the State Health Department. Her gaze swept past him to find me. Miss Cavos? I'm sorry we couldn't meet under better circumstances. Keaton's practiced smile appeared. Director, this is quite unexpected. Had we known you were coming? That's rather the point of unannounced inspections, Mr. Keaton. Her tone was pleasant but left no room for discussion. We've reviewed the preliminary evidence Miss Cavos and West River Medical provided. We're here to secure certain areas and begin testing. Garrett's face drained of color. Testing? You can't just... Actually, we can and we will. Director Meredith handed him a document. This is our warrant. We'll need access to your waste disposal areas, the 6th floor restricted zone, and all maintenance supply closets immediately. The man with the metal case stepped forward. We'll also need all records of chemical purchases and disposal for the past 10 years. Willa squeezed my hand again under the table. Her presence grounded me as the room's tension thickened. Keaton's attorney burst through the door, breathless from taking the stairs. No one answers any questions until I... This isn't a deposition, counselor, Director Meredith cut in. This is an inspection with a valid warrant. Your client can comply or face obstruction charges. The lawyer faltered, glancing at the papers Garrett held. Keaton stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. Of course we'll cooperate fully. Garrett, please assist Director Meredith's team with whatever they need. His calm demeanor almost masked the murderous look he shot me when no one else was watching. The inspection team left with Garrett, leaving me with Keaton, his lawyer, and Willa in sudden, suffocating silence. Keaton leaned forward, placing both palms on his desk. Thea, let's discuss this reasonably. Whatever your mother thought she found, chlorinated solvents, benzene derivatives, heavy metal compounds, I recited from memory, materials that should have been processed through specialized waste management, not poured down regular drains or placed in standard trash. Those chemicals aren't even used in our business, his lawyer interjected. Not in your publicly disclosed business, I agreed. But the 6th floor lab has been developing specialty coatings for military applications. Off the books, off the shareholder reports. The lawyer blanched. Keaton's expression hardened. How much? He finally asked. Excuse me? How much to make this go away? A settlement. Confidential, of course. The calm way he asked, as if buying silence was just another business transaction, made something break inside me. My mother died choking on her own blood. My voice remained steady, even as tears threatened. The hospital staff had to sedate me because I couldn't let go of her hand. And you think you can write a check? Keaton glanced at his lawyer. Grief makes people irrational. We understand that. But consider your future, Thea. Your career. Willa stood abruptly. Are you threatening her? Merely pointing out realities, Keaton replied smoothly. Whistleblowers rarely find employment afterward, even successful ones. The intercom buzzed again. Sir, there's a district attorney here, and several news vans have pulled up outside. Keaton's composure cracked just slightly. He hadn't expected media. I hadn't either. The door opened and Dante walked in, his prosecutor's confidence filling the room. Behind him came Director Meredith, her expression grave. We've sealed off the 6th floor, she announced. Initial readings confirm unsafe levels of multiple controlled substances. Dante placed a protective hand on my shoulder. My client won't be answering any questions without me present. Your client? Keaton's eyes narrowed. I thought you were here representing the district attorney. I am the assistant district attorney, Dante corrected. And Miss Cavos is a key witness in what is now an active criminal investigation. Keaton's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. His face darkened as he listened. This can still be resolved civilly, the lawyer offered, looking at Dante. There's no need for criminal proceedings. 3 people are dead, Dante replied, with a 4th, Miss Cavos's mother, dying just days ago. This passed civil a long time ago. Director Meredith checked her phone. The press is requesting statements. Keaton stood. No one speaks to the media. This is all preliminary and potentially damaging to our reputation without cause. Without cause? I echoed, disbelief rising. 4 people are dead. We have no evidence connecting any deaths to this company, his lawyer insisted. Director Meredith raised an eyebrow. The samples we just tested match exactly what was found in Loretta Cavos's blood and tissue samples. I'd call that connection rather compelling. Willa gasped softly beside me. Keaton's mask slipped completely, raw anger replacing his corporate calm. You have no idea what you're interfering with. The contracts we hold, the work we do, is vital to national interests. Poisoning your cleaning staff is vital to national interests? Dante asked incredulously. Collateral damage happens in every industry, Keaton snapped, then immediately regretted his words as his lawyer cringed. The room fell silent. He'd just admitted knowledge and indifference in one unguarded moment. Dante smiled thinly. I'd like that statement on the record. The intercom buzzed a 3rd time. Sir? The board members are calling an emergency meeting. They're requesting your immediate presence in the main conference room. Keaton straightened his tie, attempting to reclaim his composure. This conversation isn't over. Actually, Dante said, I think it is, at least without formal charges being read. As Keaton and his lawyer left, Willa turned to me, her eyes wide. Thea, I had no idea. Did you know about this all along? Not until Mom got sick, I admitted. Then pieces started falling into place. Dante squeezed my shoulder. You did everything right. The documentation your mother left. It's extraordinary. Dates, times, samples, photographs. She built an airtight case. The enormity of it all crashed over me. For years, I'd known my mother cleaned office buildings at night. I'd known she came home with raw hands and aching feet, but I'd never known she was systematically gathering evidence, protecting other workers while slowly being poisoned herself. Why didn't she tell me sooner? My voice broke. Why wait until? Because she knew you'd make her stop, Willa said quietly. You'd have been worried about her safety. I looked at her, surprised by her insight. My grandmother was the same way, Willa explained, protecting everyone but herself. Strong women sometimes don't know how to accept help. Director Meredith checked her watch. Miss Cavos, we'll need a formal statement. But first, there's something you should see. She led us to the 6th floor, now cordoned off with yellow tape. Through glass walls, I could see teams in protective gear collecting samples from unmarked containers. Those, Director Meredith pointed, were being disposed of in regular waste bins. Your mother documented exactly when and where each container appeared over years. The consistency of her records is what made this investigation possible. I pressed my hand against the glass, remembering Mom's voice. Always be thorough, Thea. Details matter. What happens now? I asked. Now, Dante said. The company faces criminal charges. Executives face personal liability. And you, I lose my job. I finished. Willa shook her head. Not necessarily. The board is meeting. This goes beyond Keaton. The entire executive team knew about the disposal practices. How do you know that? Dante asked sharply. Willa hesitated, then squared her shoulders. Because I've been gathering my own documentation for the past year. Different department, same concerns. I just didn't have enough proof on my own. I stared at her in shock. That's why you stood up for me downstairs. She nodded. When you mentioned your mother and the chemicals, I knew immediately what you were talking about. Director Meredith looked between us. I think we need to hear Miss Willa's information as well. As we walked toward a clean conference room, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. Some battles can't be won, only survived. I showed it to Dante, who immediately began tracing the number. Intimidation tactics, he muttered. Classic. They think they're untouchable. I thought about my mother, how she'd cleaned their messes for 15 years, invisible to them until the very end. How even as cancer ravaged her body, she'd continued collecting evidence, determined that her death would have meaning. They don't know what untouchable really means, I said quietly, because what they didn't realize, what they couldn't possibly understand, was that my mother had taught me something far more dangerous than determination. She had taught me patience. And as I looked at the conference room where the board was now gathering, I realized this was just the beginning. The investigation would unfold, charges would be filed, the media would report, the public would express outrage, the cycle would play out as it always does. But I had something else planned. Something no environmental inspection or criminal charge could accomplish. Something my mother had set in motion years before any of us understood what was happening. The next 3 weeks unfolded in a blur of depositions, interviews, and legal proceedings. I moved mechanically through each day, answering the same questions for different agencies, explaining my mother's documentation system to investigators who marveled at its precision. The company's stock plummeted as headlines exposed decades of environmental violations. The board placed Keaton and 3 other executives on administrative leave. Corporate speak for, we're distancing ourselves while deciding who to sacrifice. I returned to work, surprising everyone. The atmosphere had transformed completely. Where once there had been ambition and competition, now there was fear and whispered conversations that stopped when I approached. Security guards now patrolled the 6th floor. Cleanup crews in hazmat suits became a common sight. Why are you still here? Willa asked over coffee in the break room. 3 weeks after that first confrontation, I'd have quit. I need the paycheck, I said, which was partly true. Funeral expenses had drained my savings. What I didn't say was that I needed to watch, to observe which executives were panicking and which remained confident, to note which board members made hasty stock transfers and which legal counselors disappeared on extended vacations. Each night I returned to my mother's apartment, now half-packed with moving boxes, and added to her system, mapping networks of influence, tracking which regulators suddenly closed investigations, documenting which politicians received unexpected campaign contributions. My phone rang as I stared at the wall of connections I'd created. Dante. They're making a deal, he said without preamble. My stomach tightened. What kind of deal? The kind where no one important goes to jail. 2 mid-level managers will take the fall. The company pays a fine that sounds huge to the public but is pocket change to them. Everyone walks away. I grip the phone harder. That's not justice. It's how the system works, Thea. I'm fighting it, but the pressure from above is intense. These people have connections in places you can't imagine. After we hung up, I stared at my mother's photographs on the wall. Her face in each one, growing more lined with age, but always with the same determined eyes. Eyes that had seen everything and forgotten nothing. The next morning, Keaton returned to the office, his expression smug as he strode past my desk without acknowledging me. Willa shot me a sympathetic look from across the room. By afternoon, news had leaked that a settlement was imminent. The company would establish a victims fund, implement new safety protocols, and move forward with only minor disruption to operations. The corporate damage control machine was already spinning the narrative, an unfortunate oversight, now rectified by responsible leadership. Garrett approached my desk at 5:15, his confidence restored now that the worst appeared to be over. The executive team would like to see you, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. In Keaton's office, 5 people waited. Keaton himself, our new HR director, 2 board members, and a woman I recognized as their crisis management consultant. Thea, Keaton began with practiced concern. We've been reviewing your situation. The company feels terrible about what happened to your mother. The crisis consultant nodded sympathetically. Truly tragic. We'd like to offer you a generous severance package. The HR director continued smoothly. 6 months' salary, extended health benefits, and a non-disclosure agreement that protects everyone's interests. One of the board members, a gray-haired man named Ellis, slid a document across the table. We believe this acknowledges the company's regret while allowing everyone to move forward. I glanced at the paper without touching it. You're firing me, offering you an opportunity to pursue other interests, Keaton corrected. This situation has created unavoidable tension. We think it's best for everyone. Everyone meaning you, I clarified. The crisis consultant leaned forward. Miss Cavos, this settlement is extremely generous. Many would see it as a blessing. Time to grieve properly while financially secure. I studied each face around the table. They were so certain of their position, so convinced of their ability to make problems disappear with money. Did you know my mother kept a journal? I asked quietly. Keaton's expression flickered slightly. I'm not sure how that's relevant. She wrote in it every night for 15 years. Detailed entries about what she observed after hours in this building. I paused. She was particularly interested in the executive floor. The crisis consultant's professional mask slipped just slightly. Cleaning staff see everything, I continued. Late night meetings, shredded documents, affairs with subordinates, financial records left on screens. Ellis shifted uncomfortably. This sounds like you're suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm explaining why your offer is insufficient. I stood up. My mother didn't just document chemicals. She documented people, their patterns, their secrets. This is bordering on extortion, the HR director warned. No, this is me declining your offer. I moved toward the door. I'll continue working here while I consider my options. That won't be possible, Keaton snapped, his composure cracking. Your position has been eliminated. I turned back to face them. Has it? Then I'll need to speak with my attorneys about wrongful termination added to our other claims. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. What do you want, Thea? Ellis finally asked. What did I want? Justice seemed too simple an answer. Revenge too small a concept. What I wanted was for them to understand what they had taken from me, from the world, the decades my mother should have had, the grandchildren she would never meet, the retirement she worked endless nights to secure. I want to see what happens next, I answered truthfully, and left. Outside, Willa waited by the elevator. How did it go? They offered me money to go away quietly. She nodded knowingly. And you said? I said they don't know who they're dealing with. We rode down in silence. In the lobby, Willa hesitated. There's something I haven't told you, she said, about your mother. My heart skipped. What? She used to leave little notes sometimes. For the night cleaning staff. Thank you notes. Encouraging messages. I work late a lot, and I'd see her. Willa's eyes grew damp. She always checked on me, asked if I'd eaten. She'd bring extra portions of this amazing spanakopita she made. The image hit me like a physical blow. My mother, exhausted from her hospital volunteer work, still taking time to cook extra food for strangers. She talked about you constantly, Willa continued. How proud she was of your degree, your intelligence. She showed me your graduation photo. You knew who I was before all this. Willa nodded. I requested to work on your team when there was an opening. She wanted someone looking out for you here. I stared at her, recalibrating everything. Why didn't you tell me? She asked me not to. She said you'd be embarrassed, knowing your mother was cleaning the building. Willa looked down. I should have told you anyway, after she got sick. Outside the building, the early evening air felt electric with possibility. A storm was brewing, both in the darkening sky and within me. There's more to her documentation than chemicals, isn't there? Willa asked quietly. I hesitated, then nodded. I want to help, she said. Whatever you're planning. For the first time since my mother's death, I felt something like hope, not for justice through official channels, but for something deeper, something only I could deliver. Come with me, I said. At my mother's apartment, I showed Willa the wall I'd been building. Connections, evidence, patterns spanning 15 years. Her eyes widened as she took it all in. This is incredible, she whispered. But what's the plan? The settlement's nearly finalized. My mother didn't trust the system to deliver justice, I explained. She created a backup plan. I opened the closet and removed a false panel she'd installed years ago. Inside was a waterproof container holding drives, journals, and a sealed letter addressed to me. I found this the day after she died. Instructions for what to do if the official investigation failed. Willa helped me spread the materials across the floor. Hours passed as we organized 15 years of secrets. Board members' affairs with subordinates, evidence of insider trading, photos of classified documents being shared with unauthorized parties, recordings of racist and sexist comments, and detailed accounts of safety violations across multiple facilities. This is enough to destroy careers, Willa murmured, not just legally, but personally. That was her point, I replied. If the system protected them from legal consequences, their own actions would still have a cost. For 5 more days, we waited and watched. The settlement announcement came, exactly as Dante had predicted. A record fine that represented less than 2% of annual profits. No criminal charges for executives. A promise to do better, that the media reported uncritically. The morning after the announcement, I arrived at work to find my access card deactivated. Security escorted me to HR, where I received official termination papers citing company restructuring. We're still offering the severance, the HR representative said. The NDA is non-negotiable. I left without signing anything. That evening, Willa called in a panic. They're erasing everything, she whispered. It is purging servers. Documents are being shredded. They've hired a specialized cleanup crew for the 6th floor. It's time, I said quietly. The next morning, I dressed carefully in my mother's best suit, slightly outdated but immaculately maintained. I applied her favorite coral lipstick and fastened her simple gold cross necklace around my throat. I arrived at the building at 8:45 a.m., exactly when the executive team held their daily briefing. Security tried to stop me, but Willa had left her badge for me under a planter by the side entrance. I took the executive elevator to the 6th floor, entering the conference room just as Keaton was outlining the path forward to a dozen relieved executives. Every head turned. The room fell silent. Miss Cavos, Keaton recovered quickly. This area is restricted. Security will escort you out. I smiled. My mother's smile. The one she used when she knew something others didn't. I'll only need a moment of your time, I said, placing a small box on the conference table. I came to return something that belongs to the company. Inside the box was a single flash drive. What is this? Ellis demanded. Insurance, I replied simply. My mother called it her justice package. Keaton's face darkened. Security. I wouldn't, I cautioned. Not until you understand what's at stake. I turned on the conference room screen and connected the drive. A series of folders appeared, each labeled with an executive's name. My mother spent 15 years being invisible to you, I explained, opening the first folder. Cleaning your offices while you worked late, reading your notes, photographing documents left in copiers, recording conversations you thought were private. Color drained from faces around the table as I clicked through preview images. Damning emails, compromising photos, evidence of numerous ethical and legal violations completely unrelated to the chemical disposal issue. Copies of everything on this drive were sent this morning to the board of directors, major shareholders, and several journalists. I continued calmly. Not the environmental violations you've already settled, the personal indiscretions you thought no one knew about. Keaton lunged for the drive. This is illegal. You can't. Actually, I can. I corrected him. My mother was legally present in those spaces as an employee. Nothing was obtained through hacking or breaking and entering. She simply observed. The room erupted into chaos. Accusations, threats, desperate calls to attorneys. I watched them unravel. These powerful people who had dismissed my mother as irrelevant even in death. Your dead mother isn't our problem, Garrett had screamed that day. But he was wrong. My dead mother had become their biggest problem. Because Loretta Cavos had understood something fundamental about power. Those who believe themselves unseen often fail to guard their secrets. For 15 years, she had been gathering evidence while battling exhaustion, poverty, and finally cancer. Not just of their environmental crimes, but of everything they thought hidden. The investigation team isn't arriving this afternoon, I said into the pandemonium. They're already here. They've been here for years, wearing cleaning uniforms, emptying your trash, wiping your fingerprints from glass doors. I left them to their ruin, walking out with my head high. In the lobby, Dante waited with Director Meredith. It's done? He asked. I nodded. My mother always said justice comes in many forms. Outside, reporters were already gathering, drawn by rumors of board members receiving explosive evidence packages. The company that had thought itself protected by wealth and influence was about to discover the power of long-buried secrets brought to light. What will you do now? Director Meredith asked. I looked up at the building where my mother had spent countless nights cleaning while I slept. I'm going to make sure every night shift worker in this city knows their worth, I answered, and that someone is watching out for them. Because in the end, my mother's revenge wasn't about chemicals or cancer or corporate malfeasance. It was about visibility, about forcing powerful people to see those they'd chosen to ignore. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about justice finding its way. Share in the comments if you've ever witnessed someone underestimated become the most powerful person in the room. Remember, sometimes the most important people aren't those behind the desks, but those who see what happens when everyone else has gone home.